Yeah, we're fortunate to have Representative Smith here to continue the conversation because the session is coming down to the end here, and there's not a lot left as far as if they want to get some things done. This is the real final stretch here. So with more on what's being done, what's being discussed, and there are several things in the news, specifically the Back the Blue bill, but there's also some other things that you worked on this year. What are some of the high points and things that you need to continue to work on happening right now in this session when it comes to police reform?
Right. Well, I think we've had a couple opportunities to do some really great things. My disappointment comes when we didn't take advantage of those because right now is our greatest opportunity for change. When we talk about specifically the Back to Blue bill, I think there's a couple issues from my perspective. One, I don't think that the legislation is actually in line with the governor's recommendations or her task force recommendations. Right? They recommended anti-racial profiling be a portion of anything we do going forward when it comes to law enforcement, and we see that's not in the bill. Expanding qualified immunity was something that we've seen other states move back away from because it makes it harder to hold those bad officers accountable.
Can you explain what that is? Because that is one of the sticking points for a lot of people. Qualified immunity under this legislation, what does that mean if it does become law?
Yeah, basically it expands the inability for anybody to hold law enforcement or cities or municipalities accountable if there are acts that we would say are egregious. If law enforcement speeding down the road and maybe they're going at an excessive speed given the crime, right? You steal a Snickers bar from the store, you don't need a high-speed chase. And if they were to accidentally hop the curb and hit someone, who's accountable for that? With expanded qualified immunity, it would be no longer that department, not that city. And so how does that family, right, seek that sort of restoration? And so those are things that we're concerned about when it comes to expanding qualified immunity.
And this would be Senate File 342, the Back the Blue bill, passed through the House,
yes,
and it's headed back over to the Senate. Right. You've got until Friday on paper for the session to be over with, and I know everybody's kind of waiting to get home at this point. What's the likelihood that this does go over to the Senate and they find a version that they like and it heads to the governor at that point?
Oh, I think we've seen that it's a legislative priority for the majority party. For me, I would love to see the process be different. Last June, we did some things regarding policing reform that was a collective effort. I know the work that took, and so I'm disappointed we didn't do that this year. This has not been a bipartisan effort, and we have not worked collaboratively on this as a general body. And so for me, I think it will become law. I think it's a flawed piece of legislation, and so anytime we don't do our due diligence with the process, I think there's going to be unintended consequences of this legislation.
What are some of the things that you did like that you were able to do? Because again, this is something heading into this session the governor did say was a priority, police reform. Not everything makes it, not everything makes it through funnel week, not everything makes it out of committee, but sometimes just starting the process means you can come back to it. What are some things you want to come back to?
Yeah, regarding this specific topic, I'm really excited about House File 678, which is probation reform. What it does is it stops our state from incarcerating folks for minor probation infractions. But on the other side of that, it actually has the potential to decrease incarcerated populations by up to 50% in our state and save the taxpayer $6 million a year. And so if we want to address overcrowding in our jails, we want to address understaffing of corrections officers, I think this is the way to go. And this legislation did pass committee, the Public Safety Committee this year. It's sitting in the Speaker's desk. I wish we had brought it up and passed it through, but the conversation still needs to move forward. I think the fact that we're incentivizing getting your GED, apprenticeship programs when you're incarcerated, that's part of the restoration process to our criminal justice system that we have to amplify more, and I think this is a great vehicle to showcase that.
When you look at police reform and the unrest that we're seeing, is this a race issue or is this a police brutality, police training issue?
I think it's a little bit of all the above. I think we have to think of where the law enforcement and where it began, where it originated, and its intended goal. And so when we look at the social economics of it, you'll find that communities with low socioeconomic status, right, those who have low home ownership, a lot of properties that don't have a lot of value, folks who are on a high rate of unemployment, you'll see that those communities are typically over-policed, regardless of race. But when you add race in as a factor, as a variable, you see that disparity become exponentially grow. And so we have to look at the mindset in which we're training law enforcement. It has to evolve, and they want to evolve as well. The days of policing communities when they had to make sure they were safe from folks coming from other counties, right? And banks being robbed on horseback. That doesn't exist anymore. And so the protections that we need right now has to be more focused on the community as opposed to policing the individual. And so I want us to focus on those things.